Hey, this is Connie Benjamin with the Purpose Driven Entrepreneur Show, and I am so excited today because I have one of my friends, an amazing event masterful people that I'm going to tell you about, Angela Contardi. So let me tell you about this amazing woman. So Angela has always had a passion for business, design, music, and amazing food. And I have to tell you, I have been to her house so many times, and she loves her food is amazing. The entrepreneurial spirit was lit in Angela at a young age and has followed her throughout her career. And after 15 years in her professional corporate career, Angela discovered the event industry and decided to immerse herself into the discipline by getting corporate event experience, obtaining a professional event planner certification, and jumping into business ownership. With over a decade of experience in corporate events, Angela saw clear gaps and decided 2.5 years ago to shift her event business online. This is so needed, Angela. She is passionate about helping organizations connect with their communities through sticky and meaningful experiences, aka events. Angela, I just love you, and I am so excited and grateful that you're here talking about how do we have incredible online events.
And thank you so much for having me here today, Connie. It's just a pleasure. Miss you guys. It's so good to see you again.
I know, me too. So just to give you some context, if you're going like, do these guys know each other? Yes, we've been friends for a long time. Our kids know each other. I just love their family. So, and Angela is such a genius in what she does in online events. And you know me, I always want to bring geniuses, masters that are really skilled at what they do. So Angela, can you describe to us and share a little bit about, first of all, why are you so passionate about online events?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, it's interesting. I'm passionate about events. I'm passionate about all things that make our lives just a little bit better as a community. And events are a real way that we've always just done them, never thought twice about how to connect with our communities, whether it's a non-for-profit organization, for-profit, whatever it is. And that connection point, when people come into a room together, there's this energy exchange that happens. And back in the day, before COVID ever happened, before this was really even on anybody's radar, I just saw so many gaps in how people were missing opportunity to really leverage that experience. Mm-hmm. And it just was driving me crazy. So I decided I need to move this online into a space that really brings that possibility, that maximum connection to the forefront and makes it attainable for everybody. And sometimes there's this idea that, okay, so for me to do an amazing event and to just like have it off of the rails here, I got to spend thousands and thousands of dollars, and it's totally out of my reach. But the reality is, with some basic information, anybody can maximize that connection opportunity. And that's really what it is. And so when I look at organizations and their brand, it's like, do you realize how critical that event was? Slopping something together is a statement to your brand. And so it was just like, you need to maximize this. So that's where this was born from. And actually, Connie, I got the nickname of Crazypreneur when I was launching an event platform in the middle of COVID. Like, as everybody else is shutting down, there's me going out. And it was just an incredible experience, and it made it even more relevant to make that connection opportunity possible for everybody. And that's essentially what this platform does.
I love that so much. And I love that you talk about this is your brand. You know, when you're putting on that event, we have to be mindful of that and do the best we can. And quite honestly, I think back to, you know, it's been about, I'd say about 7 years ago that I put on my first event and flew in two international speakers. And I knew nothing, Angela. I should have had you on my speed dial. Like, what the heck was I thinking? I made all of the mistakes. So let's talk about that for a minute. Like, what are some of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make? Because, you know, we've got solar entrepreneurs. We think we can do it all ourselves, right? And so what are some of the biggest mistakes that we make?
Well, that's the first thing right there. Although I, was great in my corporate career and I got all that head knowledge in university, I really started eating humble pie when I became an entrepreneur. And all of those things that I learned, it's like now you got to put it into practice. What's the actual application of it? I think one of the biggest mistakes is that we think we can do it all. It takes a team. And I think that that's the first step, is understanding what you don't know. And just like with any kind of, specialty, you call the professionals. Well, it's no different with events. So although that connection piece is still really critical, probably even more so now than ever before, it's like, how do you deliver that in a really meaningful way? And so understanding what your core business is in a business model perspective is another big mistake that entrepreneurs make. There's 3 things that you really need to have to be a real valuable business. You need a strong brand. That's the thing that's that special something that only you deliver, whether it's a product or service. The second thing that you need is a system, a business system, that thing that you do that turns the wheel, that delivers that amazing thing that you do, that your customer keeps coming back for. And the third thing that you need is repeat customers. So really understanding that customer journey and where events fit in that is really critical. So those are the core things that people make this big mistake in. And the other piece is with events, where a lot of mistakes are made, Connie, is this very same thought that you can do it all on your own and that you just kind of know it all. And the fact of the matter is, it's a real discipline. Going on Google and just searching out, okay, who's a good caterer, for example. This is one of my favorites. Well, maybe they're just cooking that out of their kitchen. Maybe they're not necessarily certified and having all of those regulations in place. And someone gets sick at your event, and guess who's liable? So understanding all the critical elements. But the biggest thing I always see, whether it's virtual or live, is understanding what is the experience like from the perspective of your guest, from the person that you're trying to reach and engage with. Like, that is the piece that the ball often gets dropped. And so when COVID happened, everybody jumped on and went, okay, like, why are we having the event? Oh, we're doing it for this. Great. Okay, we're doing this event. And, oh, now we've got to shift to online. Well, we'll just stream it. But the problem is that experience from the perspective of the audience, the one that you're trying to reach, it doesn't quite fit the same. So now you hear this term, everybody's zoomed out. Because they're trying to do the old model, the old event model, in a totally new environment. There's a huge difference between the old environment and the new environment. And it doesn't matter what that is. When you have people in the same room, there's an energy exchange that happens. There's this vibrancy that happens in that space. And when we're in this, even though we're pretty electric, Connie. You're an electric chick, I'm an electric chick. Like this, but this interaction, it's like there's this barrier there. It's not the same feeling that people get. So then now, all of a sudden, what are we all? We're all in the live production business. We're all on TV. We're producing TV shows. Well, when you're watching a TV show, if it's not funny and engaging, you lose your audience. And so people are being forced to like peel their eyes back and like, I need to engage with this. When in reality, they've checked out, they've gotten themselves a sandwich and a glass of milk a while ago. So how do you pull them in? How do you get that same energy exchange in this space? And it is a totally different thing. And the professionals, by the way, in this space are even more important than before. So the bottom line is, it's not a new model. It, like businesses, for example, I do a lot of business consulting too, Connie. And that has been super rewarding and interesting from every industry you can think of, big and small businesses. There's been gaps. And when COVID happened, it's like put the gaps right here, front and center. Whereas before, they didn't necessarily need to worry about that gap. For example, businesses that weren't online, that relied on traffic going to and from, in front of their business, their shop or whatever. Well, there's no traffic now. So people don't know that you're open. So people shop like this. Well, it's the very same concept in the land of events. This is a totally new landscape. And by the way, it's not changing anytime soon because we've learned a lot. So there needs to be a new event model to really maximize that space and really promote engagement. And that is the critical piece. That's the shift.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I love how I think because of the work that you do with business consulting and also with events, that you have the perspective of where does this event fit within your business and making sure we're being mindful about our events, which is so powerful. So I can so relate to that feeling of how do we then engage? What does that look like in online events? So can you tell me what are some of the strategies that you recommend to really kind of bridge that gap when we're doing online event and help us to be connected, help people to stay engaged?
Well, the very first thing I'm going to say is, do you need an event? So before, when we were looking at the old model, we'd say, okay, why are you having an event? And the typical answer people would say is, well, I want to grow my community, or I want to have a fundraiser, or I want to this or that. It was always coming from the perspective of the organization or the person giving the event. The new question of the day is, why do people want to engage with you? What value are you adding to them? What's the why? Begin with that why. And if you can achieve that without an event, don't have an event. So it's a new landscape. So just take out those boundaries completely. So think of it as a movement. So if you are in a non-for-profit, for example, and you want to create awareness, well, instead of this event idea where the old model is, okay, there's my why, then what? Well, we're going to have a marathon. Okay, when, where, who's going to be there, right? You had these different pieces that fit that model. But your who, for example, well, that could be anyone around the world now. Your when, well, people now are trained. You've been training yourselves for over a year now. I'm going to engage with this when it's convenient for me. How many people are joining us live versus how many people will join us on the recorded version? So it's about micro and macro. It's about totally taking off those barriers and asking those same questions, but taking out the barriers. And that's the shift for the new model that we're looking at.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love that you really step that back and help us to really shift our perspective. So this is not about these simple gimmicks to keep people engaged online. It's really taking a more strategic approach and to shift our perspective with what's possible in events and to be mindful about that. Love it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Connie. I think you said a really important word. It's about being intentful. So what are you trying to achieve with that? So why would I engage with you? What can be many different pieces in that equation. And so that is the real critical shift. And it's that intentfulness and understanding the perspective of that audience, that person that you're trying to engage, what is their experience? That is the critical piece. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to add this on. Yeah. We will have live events again one day. I miss that energy connection like I'm sure everybody else does. And it's different in different parts of the world. There's different levels of engagement going on right now. But there's been an interesting learning that organizations have had while we've been doing this. Watching engagement. How are people engaging? How long are they engaging? What content are they engaging with? And the other piece of that too is they want a virtual piece. There's that whole safety component. So from the perspective of the audience, I want to feel safe. So I might feel more safe in my living room, or I might feel safe enough to go to a live event one day with those proper precautions in place. But what does that look like? But when the day comes, and you'll start to see more and more of this trend towards the hybrid event, where you've got that live and the stream. It's not just, okay, now stick it on Zoom and everyone's having a live thing and have another thing going on Zoom. What it actually is two simultaneous events happening at the same time. They're two exact things. So you've got two totally different experiences that you're curating. So for the live people, they come in through the door, that whole thing. In fact, by the way, the event experience happens before they ever walk through the door. The event experience happens the minute that they have the first conception and awareness that you're having the event. So that's, you're actually managing expectations from that point forward. So they come through the door and they have a certain experience in the live world, but then from the virtual, I don't care that everyone's sitting around and having a cocktail or whatever it is that you're having there. I'm here. How are you engaging me? What's my experience? And how do you marry the two and really create electricity? That's the trick in that whole piece. So understanding that.
Oh my gosh. And when you said that, I was like, oh, it's so true. It's two different events happening at the same time, simultaneously. Oh, that is brilliant. Okay, I know the last question we all have on our minds is, how do we get in touch with you?
Okay, Angela at ueventpro.com. That's a really quick and easy way. Check out ueventpro.com. It's a platform that we just launched, by the way. This is where I got my fun nickname from, as COVID was happening. And some folks said, Ange, I'm so sorry, like this is happening now. I'm like, oh, hold on. People need connection more than they ever did before. So let's get connected with it.
Love it so much. I encourage you to connect with Ange. Angela, thank you so much for being with us today. I am so grateful for this conversation. You're truly amazing.
Thanks so much for having me, Connie.
And thank you so much for watching and being with us today. I encourage you to take what Angela is saying, this amazing insight. Oh my gosh, I love that, being strategic about our events. That's one of my biggest lessons. And especially, this was so good, that when an event is happening, you're doing a hybrid, you've got a live event and an online event. It is two events happening simultaneously, and being mindful of that. And I know Ange is an expert in all of these things, so connect with her. I encourage you to get out there, share your message. The world is waiting for it. Until next time, let your fire light up the world.